Welcome back to Stories from the River. I'm your host, Charlie Malouf, and I'm here with my business partner, my really good friend, and president and CEO of Riverstone Logistics, Charlie Workmon. Charlie, welcome back to the pod.
So excited. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. So episode 1, we ended with personal purpose.
Yep.
Episode 2, we ended with organizational purpose. 3PD had just been acquired.
Yeah.
There was a transition period with XPO Last Mile. And then you decided that wasn't for you. So if you haven't seen episodes 1 or 2, and you can get into the background of Charlie Workmon and kind of who he is and how he got to be where he is, you go back and watch those 2. We'll put links to those in the show notes. And now we're getting into the end of 2014, and we're coming back full circle, how we got connected.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
You were starting, maybe you had started your own company. You'd hung out your shingle. I think it was called Last Mile United. I remember the logo and everything. It was really cool.
Yeah.
The lions.
It was the lions carrying the shield. Yeah. Yeah. So 2013, there's a transaction. 3PD sells to XPO. 2014, there's a transition. I know that this isn't the place for me. Nothing against XPO, but I really loved that sort of more mavericky career I had carved for myself, and being able to do a lot from beginning to end, and really had been bitten by the entrepreneurial bug. So the stage was set, and I left XPO and tried my hand at final mile delivery ownership. Started a 3PL called Last Mile United. Started making calls.
Yeah, and you'd really cut your teeth on business development and really coming up with solutions to do business development, working under the tutelage of Will O'Shea.
Yeah.
But Last Mile United wasn't the right time, I guess, for that company at that time. So instead, you kind of came calling on us, and you were like a free agent again.
Yeah. I called you and said, "Hey, Charlie, not the right time for Last Mile United, so I'm going to punt on this dream to another time." And in the middle of the conversation, you had said something to the effect of, "Well, that's a shame. I would like to find a way to work some other way." And I was like, "Well, I would too. What does that look like?" And we bounced around the idea of consultancy and coming in and helping with final mile logistics services that you guys had going on. And at one point you said, "Well, you could do that, or maybe you could come and be an employee." And
was that a conversation you and I had, or you had with Jonathan?
I think we had two different versions of that conversation, but definitely both of you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this was around the end of 14, the beginning of 15, and ultimately, I believe we hired you.
Yeah.
But by the way, at this point, I'm managing partner and COO.
Yeah.
And Jonathan is still president and CEO of Broad River Retail.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we were Broad River Furniture at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so and we're getting ready to break ground on a brand new facility, but we're struggling to get transportation. And so you come in, we offered you, I think, the director of home delivery, and you said, "Well, how about senior director?" So you negotiated for a senior director title, if I recall correctly.
My ego coming out there.
No, it wasn't the ego. So senior director of, I think, home delivery. And I think you were going to report directly to Chris Dulski at the time.
I think I was reporting to you.
You were reporting directly to me. Maybe that was part of the deal. That was really important to you. Like you wanted that mentorship. I said, "Okay, that's exciting. Let's do it." So you were going to report directly to me as senior director of home delivery, because we needed help.
Yeah.
And so you come on board January of 15.
Well, I needed help too. I was at a career crossroads. I really wanted that. I really wanted to own a company that provided logistics services. It wasn't the right time. And so I was faced with a really difficult decision. Where do I go from here? I got some really nice opportunities. There was only one opportunity where I saw the opportunity for mentorship in the area of entrepreneurship, and doing it a different way. And so a lot of long conversations with Courtney about how that would work, whether we really wanted to leave Atlanta, Marietta specifically, a home that we had just loved so much and still to this day, and only until recently would have called it my home. And so really difficult conversations, and ultimately just felt led to Charlotte, North Carolina, and to leave behind Marietta, left behind Courtney and the kids to finish out the school year because I would have come over January, I believe, 19th, 2015. And left them behind, was going to live out of a hotel, find us a place to live. We were talking about renting for a while so that eventually we could move back to Atlanta and do the 3PL thing. And so I left them, showed up January 18th, the night of January 18th, ready to rock and roll as a Broad River retail employee. And yeah, it was nothing against Chris. Chris, obviously a very good operator. It was about keeping in my mind that this path, this is a diversion, but this is potentially a better way to go about learning and being prepared to be a business owner and an entrepreneur and being mentored by a business owner and an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and you were very candid about that. And I love that, that intentional mindset you had about it. And I even think we said, and I had no idea how it would play out, but I even think we said, when that time comes, we'll help you.
Yeah.
We'll help you figure it out and, and do business with you.
It's a big part of the draw.
Yeah. So we wanted to make it a more compelling draw if we could, because we needed help, and we thought that you could help us. And, we had just completed an acquisition of the 2 stores in Asheville and an ERP conversion on January 14th of 15. So January 2nd or 1st, we did the acquisition. January 14th, we did the transition to Storis that we fumbled and didn't go well. And so all the wheels proverbially felt like they kind of came off at once. And we had just brought Manny into the company in November, about 2 months prior. And then you joined the company. I think he was director of talent. Mm-hmm. You're senior director of home delivery. And so take me through your early tenure at Broad River Furniture, soon to become Broad River Retail.
Yeah. So first, just to reiterate, I just made a decision to take my family away from a home we loved to go learn from these 2 entrepreneurs, Jonathan Ishii and Charlie Malouf. And I was fired up about it. I show up, and one of my big things with Courtney was, I want to go learn how to run a business the right way. And that meant, and I would learn more about what that meant or what I was after, but it meant learning from 2 people who were very purpose-led, who very Christian values oriented, loved people. And I guess I crystallized in my mind that I was also coming to a really stable environment and a place that just, was humming and exciting and growing and acquiring, and certainly some of that was true.
We pitched a pretty vision.
Well, I think you guys pitched an honest vision. There was a lot that wasn't known at the time. Y'all were in the middle of the conversion when we were having those conversations.
But yeah, by the way, I'm sorry to cut you off. We had no idea how bad it was going to get.
Sure.
Like, we did think it was because we were looking at expanding throughout North Carolina, and we had just done the acquisition, and we knew we were going to build this beautiful new campus. So yeah, we had no idea how we would get shell-shocked.
Yeah. And I think coming in when I did, and reporting directly to you and getting to have a, maybe not front row seat, but second row seat to what was transpiring in real time. I remember showing up on the 18th, the night of the 18th, knocking on the door. There's a little ERP meeting going on late at night, just some people working really, really hard. And they answer the door, and I'm like, I'm ready. I just want to set up my office.
Prologis Park.
Prologis Park. And I want to set up my office. And, Chris walked me over to a room that had basically been used as a storage closet for unused furniture. The furniture was still in there.
That was still better than my first office.
I heard. That's a great story. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start moving this stuff. And so I did. And got ready for work on the 19th, showed up on the 19th and just started diving in. What I would see over the next several weeks was an organization that was hurting. And it was just objective. It was numbers. And even though our metrics weren't dialed in at that time, utilizing dispatch track, but some of the outflow of metrics maybe had some inaccuracies, but they definitely pointed to major directional operational issues. And so we're talking about 80% unplanned completion rates, and just some really, really rough numbers. And I would show up I, again, wanted to be the first person in, last person to leave. I would show up early. I would watch the last picks being made. The night before, I would come in, I would go through the aisles, I would take it up against the manifests, and I would just pair each product to what was in dispatch track. And there was always missing product. And I was like, where did this go? Has anybody communicated to this customer? We were in a tough situation. And at the same time, I was coming in, and I think, I was coming from roles where I really was on an island. And I keep going back to that because I think repeatedly I ended up in roles where I was given outsized authority for my rank, where I had a bent towards action and was used to moving very fast and at my pace. So now I'm coming into an environment where I need to be much more collaborative. And what would kind of transpire in those first couple weeks and would continue to be a theme, and we'll get to it, is just my not understanding collateral damage while I'm trying to make changes fast. But I get into it really quick. I start trying to shine a light in some dark places and find some things wrong. And it didn't take long before I realized, they're in trouble. There's no way. I mean, I don't know what the financials are, but you can't sustainably run a business this way. You're going out with 20% less unplanned, and I have no idea what the plan number is. Nobody can tell me. I start to question my decision to come here, and I haven't committed to buy a house yet, and the kids are still back home. And although we sold our previous home, but we were questioning it. Same time, another 3PL comes knocking and says, hey, we got this offer for you. And I believe I shared it with you after a leadership meeting that we had a planning meeting that we had off Selwyn, and that I'd gotten an offer. And what I didn't tell you at the time, but I've told you recently, is really I started to try to grapple with what does this all mean for me? And at the same time, there were some transitions happening in leadership at Broad River, and there was a lot of emotions. I think everybody was kind of feeling that there was a lot of stress with the ERP, the Asheville acquisition, and I'm just trying to make sense of it all and whether or not it's time for me to go take that other job. I have a conversation with good old Bud Workmon, and I tell him I got an offer, and I think this other company's in trouble. And in fact, my boss, my mentor, kind of has indicated that there are some issues, and I don't know the depth of them, but I'm seriously considering taking this other offer. Very stable company, very attractive relative to where I was at the time, and a path to get back to Atlanta. My dad, not perfect, but great. He picks that moment to say, well, there are always going to be big companies that have jobs that somebody with your experience can go do. But I think that would be a mistake. You don't get many opportunities to walk into situations where things aren't all right and to be in a position to be able to do something about it. And if you believe in the people you're working for, you should, he didn't use the term burn the ships, but you should take that opportunity and put blinders on, just stay focused on it. And the reward, either through what you learn or through, what happens to you with respect to that company and that ownership group, would far outweigh anything that you would get long-term going with a stable job somewhere else.
Thank you, Bud Workmon. I agree. A great man. That's great advice, Bud. We're so appreciative of you having given that advice to Charlie. So yeah, I mean, just to paint the picture, I think we did break ground on Fort Mill in February. So 2, 3, 4 weeks after you had joined. By April 1st of that year, we had to start our weekly Change the News meetings. Every Wednesday, 8 a.m., go all day. A bunch of people, as many as we could get in a room to try to figure out how we're going to change this. And that continued for like 13 weeks. By the end of that second quarter, that's when Jonathan had asked me sometime in June, I want you to take over the president and CEO role. And by all year, we had not been able to produce financials.
Yep.
We did get recruited by Simmons Serta Betting to switch to them. We almost took that, but then Temper Seeley came in. with a lucrative offer to keep us. We needed that deal at that time to really just keep the lights on, because even though we couldn't produce financials, we were burning through cash at an alarming rate every week. Broken promises were north of 40%. You had uncovered a theft ring. Our inventory was not accurate. And Jonathan's asked me to become the president and CEO.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe I'll get a 6-month runway to kind of get prepared. He goes, I was thinking maybe next week.
Yeah.
All right, game on, giddy up. And so now you're in decision. Like, do I stay? Do I leave? I can go to this other opportunity. You decide, well, there's reasons I came here to stay. I'm gonna stick it through. At this time, you're also maybe the people you're working with, and maybe the challenge you're taking on, and it's kind of this, we're all in it together. Let's figure this thing out. And so I think you then got promoted. I made a lot of moves. And by the way, let me go back a second. You were talking about our first offices.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't kind of interject for Manny, because he would have given up his office in 2015 to Bill Woodman. Yeah. So he had no office. So he probably would have won up both of us on that conversation.
No, absolutely.
So I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but then, the good thing is we'd hired you and Manny, and so I'm, was put in a position with not everyone, but with some key people to help turn this thing around. And so, a couple of my first decisions was, Manny's getting elevated, and then you're getting elevated. I think you took on a different title at that time too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, VP of Operations.
Okay, so that's right. So Chris moved into a different role because we knew we needed someone to focus on getting Fort Mill in position to focus on that. So he took on supply chain, I think, or project management, with primarily focusing on Fort Mill. You moved into the VP of Operations role. You've never been a VP of Operations before.
Nope.
And then I remember vividly your and I'm going to turn it back over to you in just a second, but your deal was, you're going to take like Burton and Cherie and some of the key players, and I'm going to let you speak to them, but you're like, we got to get inventory accurate. Inventory is foundational. You knew that part. We got to fix this. And we were planning to move. Fort Mill was going to be built. We're going to have to start paying rent on it, and we're going to have to move sometime about around the end of October. So I'm going to turn it back over to you to kind of tell your other part of your first year at Broad River.
Yeah. So I think to get to the meat of it, I had a 4-pronged plan, and I remember it clearly.
This was part of the bold reset.
This is part of the bold reset.
The first 100 days.
It was all part of it. But what I had in my mind, and some elements of it preceded the bold reset meeting. But really, for me, it was first, we need a new 3PL in here. We need somebody to bring better quality. But not only that, I also understood, not intimately, but understood enough that the cash position was perilous, that we needed better terms on a really big line item. And so I wanted to secure better cash terms as a part of a new deal. So we cast a wide net. We interviewed a number of 3PLs, and we came to the ironic conclusion that XPO was the best solution for us, and we hired XPO.
Which is so interesting because we'd been with our previous 3PL provider for 11 years.
Yeah.
It's how you manage the 3PL.
Yeah.
It's not their fault we had a theft ring, by the way, and we own our own problems. We had broken all of our own bones. Those were our problems, ours to solve. So we're not casting that blame on anyone. No. But yeah, that first part of that plan, and by the way, we had also just introduced Dash. Yeah. We went from the commodity of delivery to delivery assembly service in her home, and we were going to, at our worst, raise our prices and then pay commission on Dash and give everyone a raise at retail. But we needed them to believe in something in a different provider. So it was all this creative destruction all at once. So 4-pronged plan, change the delivery provider, a bold move, moving fast, breaking things, fixing things really.
I love that. I come alive in those moments for sure. Thank you, Steve Carey, for Dash. That was it was a great acronym. And so that was part one of the 4-pronged plan. Part two was really focusing on the inventory component and understanding that we had brokenness there, and there needed to be some pretty drastic steps taken. But here's the thing. I mean, clear acknowledgement. I had no idea how to fix it. I didn't. We had good people in our network, including Storis, of course. but other providers other service providers and other notably licensees that really came and made themselves accessible to us so we could go figure out inventory. And really, it was.
You told me you could fix it, though. You were highly confident. As I remember it, that may not be what you told me, but as I remember it, you're like, I can fix it. And I think you basically went to the manual and you read the manual. You're like, we'll figure it out. But I was highly confident you were going to be able to fix it. And maybe I just wanted to believe that.
Well, I think what happened was it's like when your body sustains an injury, you overcompensate in other areas. And I think the shockwave of the ERP transition, really quickly people were interested in keeping the business going, the widgets of the business going. And so they quickly abandoned the manual and started creating workaround processes that were really destructive and created downstream trouble. I knew that, and I started to pinpoint like where these workarounds were causing us issues. But I had never managed a four-wall operation. I had never managed an inventory at those levels, multi-million-dollar inventory. And so I was confident. Of course I was confident.
We had no other options, by the way. It was like, hey, if you can't fix it, we may not survive, so please fix it.
I was very, very confident, but I wasn't confident because I knew what to do. I was confident because it's not a new thing for me to be in a situation where I have to figure it out on the fly. And in that case, I guess, I stood on the shoulders of giants. I stood on the shoulders of people who really got in and did the grittiest work. I mean, Burton Oxford was sleeping on the floor repeatedly night after night of an office and on a cot he brought so he could be there for third shift and he could be present and really retrain everybody on how to use the scanner, when to scan, monitoring scans so that he could jump on the problem right away and retrain people in real time. And, Cherie Rivera was absolutely terrific. She hit another level, really oversaw inbound where a lot of our initial inventory issues were starting and cleaning up those processes. And Tito Otero, just kind of a do everything kind of guy who really, I got a radio app where I think we were turned on to by Gary Seals' team, and where we could communicate throughout the night. I was in my bed at 2 a.m. turning on the radio app and asking Tito for updates, and Tito was within 5 minutes giving me an update, and just so good. And so that trio and so many others really were just there's no other way to treat inventory other than every piece of furniture is an invaluable baby that has to be, you have to know where it is at all times and you have to monitor each step. And that's a gritty, at its core, technology helps, but technology can be cheated and fail. At the end of the day, it's just each link being babysat, reinforced, retrained, and again, rinse and repeat.
So there's two of the four prongs. What were the other two prongs?
So the third prong was the shop. The shop was, and for those that don't know, and I'm sure Broad River knows, but the shop is a place where furniture goes to get repaired, and it is, or was, when I got to Broad River, it was a place that looked like Mount Trashmore. I mean, it was just this.
Now, is that the nickname you guys applied to it?
I think that came from a Simpsons episode. Okay. But no, I don't think I called it that. But Jonathan Ishii, the first time he walked me through the warehouse, he would, famously say to Rodriguez, "This is, the outlet's the place where we hide our sins." Really, that starts at the shop. The shop is the extension, and a lot of the sins were derived from there. Just a lack of process, a lack of accountability, metrics, no standard was set. And where no standard is set, you can't hit a standard. So it was a very broken shop. It was a source of a lot of inventory issues, but it was also where we were watching cash go out the door. At times, I believe we had in the teens numbers of trailers waiting to go to the outlet. Literally, we were paying dwell time in somebody's lot for waiting for it to get where it needed to go to be sold at a fraction of what we wanted for it. And then we had, at any one point in time, 5 to 10 salvage trailers, which is, we've just given up on the furniture. We're giving this away for pennies on the dollar. It was really high at one point. And so the shop was so dysfunctional that the shop's mess was extending not just in the outlet, but into, at any one point in time, upwards of, 25 to 30 trailers and that's a lot of cash to watch walk. So we had to fix the shop, and you talk about something I had no idea how to do, that. So I asked my wife how handy I am. I couldn't show people how to do it. But again, it's where our community and the Ashley community really came through for us, where we had folks like, like the Koenigs and at City Furniture and others that really opened their doors and let us come see how a shop is run. And not that they or anyone does it perfectly, but it gave us a blueprint to go follow and try. And so that was prong number 3, and a very important one, of course. Prong number 4 was we needed cash. We needed to stay open. Recovery meant not taking too much time off. And there had been an existing plan to shut down our delivery operations for a week to facilitate a move.
At the end of October, yeah.
At the end of October. So really the 4th prong was, how can we expedite the move and shrink the footprint as quickly as possible? And there was a lot of passionate viewpoints on it all. And, to some extent, my view was kind of blunt force trauma. We're just going to push it through. We're going to push it through fast. I'm going to put a lot of resources on it. And we're just going to drive productivity like we've never driven productivity before, get it there and get up. And so we took a week's move, and we shortened it to, I think, 27, 29 hours, something like that.
Well, yeah, around Halloween of 2015. I remember Gary Seals and Jonathan pushing back a little bit because I was trying to defend the plan. Well, we're going to get, like, you don't know what you're doing. I think this guy knows what he's doing. But that plan in and of itself was like a 4-pronged plan, because we did the 100 days for the bold reset, but we ran out. That got us to like the end of September. Yeah. Then we had to do the bold sprint, which was the encore to get us to Fort Mill. And that was like a 10,000 point plan, operational readiness, new facility readiness, move readiness, inventory readiness. I don't think about these all the time. They're just kind of coming back to me. But that was a big project plan.
It's huge
in and of itself to get ready to do that move. So then we got there, and then we got to Fort Mill. And so around this time, we'd also had restored profitability. Mm-hmm. By the end of July, Bill Woodman had kind of given us the score for the first 6 months, and it was brutal.
Yeah.
Near bankruptcy. We got thrown into special assets. We don't like to talk about that, but Jonathan had to put more cash into it. We're holding on by a thread, and and we have to present plans to corporate. 1,000-page plans to Mark Dufresne and Todd Wanick. How are we going to turn this thing around and have regular calls and and so, but I'm sure we'll get into it, but also. We're getting this renewed spirit that we can figure this thing out. Others have figured it out. You've got this unfettered ability to I'll call people. I'll figure it out. I'll call Storis. I'll call FDE. I'll call City Furniture. I'll call Trey Smith. I'll call these folks who we have, Billy Lindler, who we have relationships with, and ask questions. So I applaud you for that. So anything else about 2015 and just that transition year? Like where were you by the end of 2015 and with regards to your career, your move, Broad River?
Yeah, I was all in. I had blinders on. I was all Broad River, and really, I don't know. I'm sure it was there, but thinking about having a 3PL and resuscitating that idea, it was not very close to my mind. I had gotten really focused, all in, burned the ships, and not look back, and there would come a day. But I would also say that year, and I don't know if this reveals how sick I am, but it was one of the most fun times I've ever had in working. It really was. And it wasn't, look, I know my management style at that time and how it differs from my management style today. Thank goodness. I've evolved, but I know there was a lot of collateral damage, a lot of feelings hurt, a lot of quick, rapid decisions that were being made with little consultation and collaboration. And that's not the way to do things in a stable environment. But at that time, in that broken environment, I felt like I had been equipped to step in and just figure things out and to drive
You've been in a
things.
crisis before.
Been in
You've
crisis.
been post-Katrina,
Yeah.
Hurricane Katrina, sorry. So you'd been in a crisis before, and you know, in different environments require different leadership approaches. And you're doing the best you could.
Yeah, just extreme bias for action.
And no one's been bat 1,000. This is your first time in that type of role.
For sure.
But, you know, it's funny because when we're in the fire, that was a very memorable year for me as well. By the way, I remember calling one time, it was a Saturday or Sunday, and calling to see what you're doing. I either called you or Manny, and you guys were on the delivery together.
Yeah.
Like, what are y'all doing?
Yeah, just look, I mean, it wasn't always pretty.
It's like a Sunday afternoon, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had so much fun with that, Charlie. I mean, like, I just remember Manny and I spent a lot of time together that year, and just the fun of it all. We dreamt a lot together. Like, what's the next phase going to look like? We stayed focused and worked really well together. And I just had so much fun with not just him, but you. And with, Burton. Burton was kind of just the guy I leaned into, and in terms of, he didn't like a lot of my ideas, and he would tell me, and he wouldn't live with it, kind of grit and bear it, and get mad or talk bad about it to somebody else. He would just tell me to my face if I was being dumb, so but I had so much fun doing it all. I loved sleeping in the office. That there was a week where it was just focused on inventory, and I was just there 24/7, and it was fun. It was like a camp out with a lot of decisions. So, but no, I loved it. It was great. It was a great environment. But make no mistake, there's no way it gets done without people like Burton, Sheree for sure. Tito for sure. And
so appreciative of you and each of those people. We've had Tito and Sheree on the podcast before. And I think what I was trying to get to earlier was sometimes we're going through really memorable times and with really special people in our lives, and our paths connect, and we don't know at that moment that how memorable or special it is while we're in it.
Yeah.
Only upon, that hindsight's 20/20, looking back in the rearview mirror, do we really, those were the best of times, and they were really special, and they really kind of helped make me who I am, or I'm so appreciative for having gone through those. And so I like to say a lot of times, we broke all of our bones, but it was the best thing that ever happened to us. And we rebuilt them, and we all did it together with a smaller group, and who said, a lot of people opted out. We had to rebuild a leadership team, bring new people into the fold, people taking on roles that they maybe had never done or had not, was maybe premature qualifications at that point, myself included, perhaps. And we were going to figure it out, but we were going to be all in it together. And that when you're in the foxhole, sometimes you just need to know someone else is in there with me and not going to, not going to let me go and not going to let it fall. And then it just, you talk about speed of trust. That's speed of trust.
Yeah.
So that takes us through 2015. We still got a lot more to close the gap here. So we'll bring you back again to talk more about Broad River and the years after, getting through Fort Mill. So please join us back next time for this really great conversation with Charlie Workmon on the history of his involvement with Broad River. Soon we're going to get into Riverstone and kind of where we are today. So thanks so much for joining us. Thanks, Charlie. Come back again for a few more.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.